Brilliant. We've got some people online. We'll just give it another minute, a couple of seconds. Brilliant. We've a good few people online now, Paul, if you want to get started.
Okay, thank you, John. Right, so good morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's Getting to BIM webinar. We hopefully have your attention for the next 1 hour and 50 minutes of your life. Today's point of today really is a follow-up principally from our recent very successful event at Autodesk in Farnborough, and also for those of you that couldn't make it, to really give you an idea of what we talked about on the day and hopefully get you on your journey to building information modeling using the Autodesk platform. I'm joined today, I'm very pleased to say that we're joined today by my colleague Jonathan Reinhardt from Datec, who has a tremendous amount of experience in practicality in industry, having taken this path himself through to the BIM environment. Jonathan's going to go through a quick introduction of his background and expertise in this particular field. In terms of the agenda, etc., we're going to be really talking to you about what we mean from an Autodesk perspective using the Revit platform, in this case, as the authoring tool to produce your building information model. And again, Jonathan's going to share with you some very interesting steps and real life projects that he's worked on to show you how he's achieved that using Revit. We're going to then take quite, I would believe, a deep dive into Revit itself to show you, how you transition perhaps from where you are today. We tend to find a lot of our customers are on a 2D based platform and are looking to move to a building information modeling authoring tool such as Revit. So we tend to focus the majority of the time on the product, because from previous feedback we know that is very important to you. We're also going to be talking today about collaborating on your BIM model, which obviously is a key part of building information modeling, using the Autodesk BIM 360 cloud-based platform. You'll hear terms come up in your journey to BIM called CDE or common data environments. So we're going to try and just bring some skills and knowledge to you around that, so you can start considering that as part of your overall BIM strategy. We're going to have a specific Q&A about 10 minutes towards the end of today's session, where we'll take questions live. But during the course of the presentation today, you'll see you have the capability through the panel that you've got on your screen to enter questions there, which we'll typically either save to the end, so we don't disrupt the webinar massively. And if there's any ones that are particularly time-consuming and technical, we'll follow up with them after the webinar has ended. So I'm going to hand you over to Jonathan now, as I say, really for the next hour and 40 minutes or so. He's going to introduce himself, as I say, go through the background, and then get going on the introduction to BIM, getting started with Revit, and then a deep dive into the software. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Jonathan.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Paul. Thanks for that introduction, and thank you everybody for taking the time out of your day this morning to join us. I'm sure you're quite busy. So as Paul briefly introduced me already, I'll just go into a bit more detail just to give you context of my experience in the industry. So I currently work as a technical consultant, particularly in the BIM area, using Autodesk products, but also working closely with architects and SME firms as well to implement BIM in their businesses. I have about 13 years experience across architecture, engineering and construction, and I also have a master's degree in BIM management, and I've also worked as a BIM manager in an architectural firm of about 15 people, and I introduced BIM there as well, and coordinated the BIM training as well for the whole practice. And I've also worked extensively as an architectural technologist, and having graduated from architectural technology back in 2009 in the UK. So that's a little bit about myself. So today's agenda agenda, as Paul already touched on. We're going to do a bit of an introduction, and I'm going to show people how to get started with Revit, how you might first address it if you're moving maybe from AutoCAD or a different package, how you might get up and running with Revit. I'll then go into an actual Revit demonstration as well, and we'll spend a good bit of time on that, getting to know the tools and the principles around that. And then towards the end of that, I'll show you how you're able to access your BIM model or your Revit model, being able to share that directly from within the package itself, and being able to access that in the cloud, whether you're using BIM 360, and if you have access to that, you can use it to retrieve your model regardless of your location as well. So iPads and mobile devices as well integrate quite well with that. And we'll have a couple of minutes at the end to take a Q&A as well. So just some of the projects I've worked on, just to show you the scale of projects. This is 600 bed student resident accommodation, all to BIM level 2 standards. This was in Dublin, but I've also worked on smaller projects as well, using Revit and using BIM. So home extensions, one-off buildings as well. And this is I suppose the purpose of this is just to show that BIM and Revit is for any size project. You'll always get benefits out of this. And these are actually renders taken directly from the Revit model, using Autodesk cloud rendering, so there's no photoshopping or anything done to them, and some internal renderings as well. So I'll show you how to get on the path to start creating similar designs to this. And I've also worked on large housing schemes, also using Revit as well. And this was actually a pilot project against a CAD project in the practice that I implemented BIM in. So that's just a little bit about my experience and the context to my background today as well. So I suppose, what is the purpose of BIM? We live in an age of a lot more of connected information. Everything is connected through the internet and technology now, and BIM is no different. So looking at the design process, but also looking how that information feeds into the build, construction stage and the operation stage of buildings as well. Regardless of a building size, it's all still quite relevant. And just looking at the reuse of information that you can get from a BIM process to reuse along your project life cycle and supply chain as well. So this is the McLeamy curve. Basically, this just demonstrates that as a project moves along through design stage, from your PD, early design stage or pre-design stage, as it moves along, any design changes that occur, you can see as the red line increases, any design changes that occur either on site or at detailed design stage, it's obviously going to be more expensive and less efficient to make changes at those stages, purely because you're changing more detailed drawings, there's more information. Or if you're on site and a change happens, the cost to impact of loss of materials, manual labor as well. So BIM sees being a supportive role to hopefully eliminate a lot of issues that you might come across in the design phase and as well on the construction phase as well, regardless of your project size. And just looking how BIM is able to impact that as well by having coordinated drawings and coordinated information as well, rather than having duplicate and unmanaged amounts of information as well. So just some of the figures we've seen from benefits of using BIM on projects, and companies have identified that they have a far higher, greater cost predictability by being able to quantify and schedule information, improved construction schedules as well, because they can foresee what's going to happen. They can produce things like forward as well on some projects, and people have also reported far less errors as well in the design because of the coordination as well, and you're able to optimize your design as well. So you're not just thinking in a 2D mode, you're always thinking in a 3D environment, and that forces you to, whether you're a designer or a technician or whatever your role is, it forces you to think in 3D before your building goes to site, and you'll have considered in your own mind a lot more of the design details before it's on site, and you've a contractor ringing you with an urgent request for information, when with the likes of a BIM situation, you'll hopefully have foreseen most of any of those details come up already. And then a lot of people are explaining that they've a lot better understanding of the whole design as well as a result of using BIM. And also, I suppose, from a business point of view as well, whether you're design consultancy, architects or engineers, BIM also enables you to pitch for new work, especially in the UK. We see that the BIM Level 2 mandate that was introduced a number of years ago that requires all publicly procured projects over a certain amount of value is required to have BIM on it. And this has impacted even the SME market as well, because there's more skilled BIM users in the market, so more companies are starting to use BIM as well. And this also allows you to offer an additional service or billable services to your clients as well, whether it's just a virtual reality or 3D rendering that you're able to get out of your BIM model as well. You're also able to charge clients or even just offer clients more value for their money as well as a result of you introducing a BIM process. So some of the architecture, engineering, construction software that Autodesk supply, so that they've got a suite of products. They also have BIM 360, which is our cloud tools. I'll touch on that briefly at the end. And we also have the AEC collection, which is a collection of products. And within that, in particular, is Revit, which we're going to focus on today. And just to identify that there's a difference between Revit that we'll go through today, which is the full version, and there's also Revit LT, which is a slightly toned down version. The full version of Revit just allows you to incorporate a lot more coordination and collaboration in your design, and it has a far broader range of tools versus Revit LT, just to identify that. And some of the other products that you'll hear me mention as well, also included in this suite of products, are available as standalone. Revit is as well, but there's also Revit Live for virtual reality. Things like Format Pro, getting your designs started in a massing, modeling, sketching environment as a product, or it can be done within a web browser. I'll touch on that as well. And also you can still use AutoCAD alongside your BIM process. They're extremely integrated now, and being able to link in AutoCAD into your Revit model is extremely powerful, especially if you're working with consultants or still people in your business that are still using AutoCAD. You can still work in quite a collaborative workflow that's quite efficient. And there's lots of other products today we're not going to cover, but it's good to be aware of them, that they're also included in this collection of products. So Revit is a main authoring tool, and this is what we're going to cover today. And this allows you to produce your 2D and your 3D models completely from your single process. And this is, you know, we've all used AutoCAD. I've gone through it myself for quite a number of years, and just producing 2D drawings, fantastic workflow. But the extra value that you're able to get from something such as your 3D models as a result of your 2D workflow is such an added amount of value, and all of your coordinated information, so everything is linked back to your 2D drawing and also back to your 3D model as well. So it's all interlinked, and there's also plenty of modeling tools in there, regardless of your discipline, whether it's architecture, structural, or M&E as well. They're all included within Revit, the full version. And there's also some connected workflows, which I'll touch on, particularly around design side, for using like Format Pro, and also Revit Live as well for using virtual reality software, but also being able to just walk through your BIM model and being able to show that to a client as well as some additional value. So this is Format Pro. This allows you to start your model at an early stage, create a massing study, just create volumes and being able to extrude your model. I'll touch in, and then you're able to import that geometry. So it's not a separate 3D model that gets created and gets forgotten about. It gets created and then it gets reused at the later design stage as well. So all that work that you're able to reuse is not a loss of time to you whatsoever, and the 3D model always stays relevant. There's also things like Revit Live, so directly from within Revit, you can send your model to a package called Revit Live. Literally takes about 5 minutes just to export. It just sends it up to the cloud, re-downloads it, and then you can immediately open that, and you're able to walk through it with clients. You can change the time of day, you can click on objects, see what the specification of a chair is, or a wall is, or what finish is going to be on that. And if you want to take that a step further, you can also plug in an Oculus Rift to it as well, which, as far as I know, have become a lot more value for their money lately, and a lot more accessible as well in the market. So this is Revit Live, just to touch on how you might get your model from within Revit. So this is within Revit itself, and just you set up a number of 3D views. You're able to then export that in something called your Go Live option here in the top of Revit. And this is just pulling your Revit model you've already created it for your drawings, you've already created for your 3D. You're able to get additional value without actually doing anything else. And as you can see here on the screen, you're able to walk through that in quite a realistic experience as well. And then just click on the VR headset if you happen to have one as well. So just some additional tools there to help you communicate your designs as well, and hopefully impress your clients too. So I'm just going to jump straight into the Revit demonstration here. I'm just going to put the PowerPoint away for a minute. And I'm just going to open up a blank Revit project just to show you some of the principles and just to explain them. So here I have open a blank Revit project. On the left hand side here we've got you'll see it's called level 0. This is a floor plan view, and on the right hand side we just have a 3D view here. And just initially I'm just going to start placing some walls. So up in the top ribbon of your product, it's very similar to AutoCAD in layout, and just the principles are a bit different, that is all. So basically you can just click on a wall. It's not a line that you're drawing. You can just click on the wall. You're able to just start placing, just save that. You're able to start placing walls immediately. Just what you can see then in the right hand side that the wall is then appearing in the 3D model. So as I'm drawing that, so this is a fairly small building, but you still get the idea. So that's created my 2D drawing as well as my 3D model on the right hand side. And then if I wanted to do something like start placing windows in that, there's pre-installed windows within our Revit library, which comes with an extensive amount of objects to get you started. So I can just click on window. I've got a series of different windows here, different sizes. You can also load in a lot more window sizes as well, just to show you that you're not only confined to what's installed in the template. So this is what's known as your object library within Revit, and it comes installed with hundreds of objects, whether it's windows, walls, different types of components, site components, furniture, a whole lot of other stuff as well. And just to show you the whole range of what is known as families, if you think of it in an AutoCAD context, these are your blocks effectively, but they're called families. So we're able to load in a lot of different objects there as well. You can also create your own if you prefer, and there's also locations to download objects from third parties as well. I know some window manufacturers do create their own windows, and they have all of their own manufacturing information attached to them as well. So you're able to load in windows as well. So for now, I'm just going to use the windows that we have created in here, and I'm just going to place them simply here within our walls. And you can see the windows automatically snap. You can't place it out here in free space. It automatically snaps to your wall object. And I'm just going to make, you can see my walls are quite tall here. I'm actually just going to make this a 3-story building. So I'm just going to highlight all of my walls. I can then change the height of these walls. I'm just going to make them 2.4 meters. A compliant height, and you can see as I changed that in one space, it updated in the other space, and this feeds through into your elevations as well. So if I was to jump through in an elevation, you can see that that object is placed there as well. So again, that's your 2D information. As you zoom in, you can see line thicknesses, and all these line thicknesses can be adjusted as well, and you can set up your own standards and your own template once you get up and running with it as well. So if I select this in a 2D view, and if I hit delete, you can see it's gone from the floor plan as well. And you can see it's also deleted from my 3D view as well. And just, I'm going to jump into a bigger project now after this, just to show you the initial principles. So just to show you, if you were, for example, to start in something like Format Pro, like I discussed, this is a simple modeling tool or sketching tool. It can be used also on an iPad. Just using your hands or using a stylus pen, and you're able to then extrude those volumes. Just going to highlight the surface. You can then extrude those volumes up to different levels. You're able to then manipulate all of those, all of that geometry. So again, highlight this. It could be any project size. And then once you've created that geometry, you can add plenty more detail. If you wish, you're able to export that. So I'm just going to save that into a project folder as an AXM file. I'm just going to place it in the folder I have set up here. And I'm just going to jump back into Revit quickly just to show you how I can reuse this. So just under my add-ins tab, if you go to, you'll see there's a Format Pro plugin. Now you may have to install this in addition, but it is an Autodesk product. I'm able to import my format model. So being able to take that model that I've just created, so you can see it's imported itself in there. I can then manipulate those objects separately. You can see they came in from the same file, but they move individually as well. And I'll just show you in 3D view how they appear. Now this is similar to the layering system. These are how you control your visibility graphics within your 3D environment as well. So you can see there that all those objects have imported. So basically they're just simple massing objects at the moment. But what if I wanted to convert them into, say, walls and intelligent information? I can then select my wall by face tool, and I'll be able to just select this wall, and you can see that's converted that into a wall automatically. And I can continue to do that. You can do the same for roofs, floors, and this can be any sort of building size. So that's just showing you how you can reuse that information that you've created in Format Pro, exported that into your Revit model, and then start modeling from it as well. So some people might start like that, excuse me, or you might just start directly from within a blank Revit project. So I'm just going to close this project now, and I'm just going to jump into another project that we've developed along as well. So I'm just going to close that. So this is another project here. This is a school in Langley in the UK. And essentially here, this has been modeled up to quite a detailed standard, and I'll just show you some of those now. So essentially, this is our 3D view, similar to how we saw on the smaller building there, and it's all interlinked to our 2D drawings in the same principle that we just saw, but just on a larger scale. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to open up one of our floor plans here. So finish floor level ground. And I'm just going to type in WT for window tile. This just allows you to see your model alongside each other. So these are the same. These are two separate tabs, but they're within the same project. So I can just then navigate around that 3D space, and you can see how the floor plan relates to it. And again, just going to select a window. You can see that window has now highlighted within our floor plan as well. So attached to this window, or attached to your objects as well, is what's known as parametric information. And these are basically your properties of that object. And within here on the left-hand side, you can see we've got a type mark, this is known as, and this is where you can give it your window number or your schedule number as well. It also tells you what head height that window is at. So if I change this within my head height as well, I change that to 2 meters. You can see that has jumped down already. Now I'm going to undo that because it's not going to line up with the rest of them. Architecturally, we like things to line up definitely. So I'm just going to undo that. You can see it's jumped back to its space. And you can see there's also these tags as well. So these tags are intelligent tags. So if I select this window, I'm actually going to change the number of this window here. It's going to change that to 12, for example, hit apply, and you can see that window tag has also updated as well. So again, that coordinated, interlinked information that you only have to create the information in one location, and then it replicates its way across, even if you're only doing something as simple as window tag as well. You can see here that the wall detail is fairly low as well, but you can also have parametric information that's attached to this as well. So you can change the height of that as well. You can also put in specification against the comments or finishes in here as well. But you can also go into a higher level of detail as well. And I'm just going to show you the buildup of that wall. So we can jump here between 3 different levels of views. It's not like you have to create a separate wall. I'm just going to click on Fine. And you can see that's brought up the actual construction of that wall now. So as I mentioned already, you don't just draw lines, you draw objects or walls. So I'm just going to show you the construction of that wall and how they're created as well. So I'm just going to click into Edit Type. So within our wall types here, we have a series of preloaded wall types in our library already, but you can have this completely empty with only 1 or 2 walls that is your traditional type of construction. And you can create your own typical wall build-ups as well. So within the construction of those walls, you're able to preview then any of the detail levels. So you can see here that it's made up of various different layers. So on the outside, we've got a brick 102.5, and we can change the thicknesses of this to whatever brick thickness is usually standard 102.5, but that might change. But then you also have your structure as well. So depending on what type of structure, this building, it could be a 215 blockwork. I want to then change that to 215. As soon as I hit enter, that wall size increases, and then that wall type within our project increases as well. So I'm just going to click OK on that. So I'm just going to hit edit type. So I'm just going to change this wall thickness to 215. I'm going to click OK. Now I need to rename this because you can see it's still called 100, 102, 140. I'm just going to change this to 215 just because we know it's a bigger wall and we already have one in place. So just when I click OK, you can see that the wall construction, wherever that wall already occurs within the project, you can see that that has updated entirely as well. And I'm just going to show you, these are what's called section tags as well. So I can right click on a section tag, but I can also place section tags as well. So under our view tab, this is where we create all our views. So I'm just going to create a section. I'm going to select our section line. So a section doesn't yet exist for what I'm placing here. I'm just going to draw this line across the building. And that has automatically created a view for that. I'm just going to right click. I'm just going to go to view, and that's going to bring me to that section that it's created. So if I change anything within this section, it's going to update in your 3D model as well. And if I move that section line, it's also going to change it as well. So I'm just going to tile those windows again, close my 3D views. So again, so I'm just going to move this section line, and you can see how the drawing updates then on the left-hand side. I can also flip it to face the other direction, and that's giving me another section as well. And I can create as many sections as I want, and just to start placing these on sheets also. So I'm just going to show you the process of creating sheets as well. So similar within a CAD process, how you might see something like setting up viewports and setting up your plot tabs and your layout tabs as well. Within Revit, we have something called sheets. So there's quite a number of drawings already set up here. I'm just going to X out of that. Close that section as well. So here we have a number of sheets, and we have a drawing placed on them as well. For me to create a new sheet, I'm just going to select new sheet, right click on sheet from our project browser. Right click on my sheet, and it asks me what title block I want to import. So this can be you can have these saved on your central server or whatever way you work your own folder locations. You can then import your standard Revit drawing block or drawing layout tab. That's then created a sheet. You can see here it's unnamed. I can then rename that. I can call that, I'm going to call it revised ground floor plan. Just going to click OK, and you can see it's automatically given it a number of A113, and that's automatically numbered from the last one sequentially. So you didn't have to do that itself. Revit has automatically do that. So there's no issue there of creating wrong numbers as long as you're going up sequentially. So now I have my drawing sheet created. I'm just going to back to my floor plan views that I have created here in my project browser under floor plans, and I'm just going to pull in my floor plan. I'm just going to pull it across like that. And you can see it places on a sheet. You have an option to move it around, put it wherever you want. So I'm just going to click on the sheet, and you can see that drawing is placed completely on that sheet. That is now ready to print. If you zoom in, you can see all your different line weights. And as I said, these line weights can be adjusted as well, but you can also adjust how the drawing appears. So obviously the detail level of this is for, a pre-construction or a tender stage. But if you're just looking at a planning or design stage, you're able to change the appearance of all of that information as well. So I'm just on the left-hand side, I'm going to go into the properties of that particular viewport, and I'm just going to change it to coarse. Now that's only changed that in that relevant view. It hasn't changed it within the drawing itself whatsoever. If I want to now change the scale of that drawing, I can then select that viewport, and in my left hand side here you can see where it says view scales. I can change this to any size I want. I'm just going to click 1:200. These are all pre-programmed scales, and you can see that has automatically changed down to a different scale. You're able to adjust these viewport lines or text underneath as well if you wish, but you can see that the 1:200 has also changed there as well. I'll just show you that. If I change it again to another scale, back to 1:100, you can see it automatically changes scale. And this is something I've often seen issues, especially with planning, where the wrong scale could have been left on the CAD drawing for whatever reason, and you know, there's an issue with the local council as a result, and therefore you know, you might have an issue with your planning application. So you can see how that's updated there. What it also does when you change the scale, it also determines what to show on the drawing and what not. So as you go into less detail, so if I was to go down to 1000, it's going to show less information on the drawings as well. So that's all automated, saving you having to remove or turn layers off as you might in a viewport within something like AutoCAD as well. So I'm just going to jump this back to 1:100, click apply. And the same principle applies to when you select anything in Revit, the parameters on the left-hand side within your Properties tab, and there should be a lot of editable information in there as well. So I'm able to put in my drawn by information here. So I'm just going to put in my initials. Just going to click apply. And you can see then that has automatically updated again within my title block as well. So similar to how title blocks, once they're set up in AutoCAD, work, but again, a lot more automated, and all of your full information here as well. It also gives you the size of your drawing sheet, just so you're aware as well. And then just to print that, you can simply, as you would in AutoCAD, it's the same. It's all placed on sheet, Control P, or you can even export that to a PDF as well. So I'm just going to jump back into my floor plan. I'm just going to show you how you might link in some CAD drawings, or if you could be working alongside a CAD process and still running a CAD process while maybe moving or transitioning to BIM as well. That's still quite feasible and very easy to do using Revit. So I'm just going to go to Insert, and you have a series of options here to link in certain different drawings, different files, other Revit files you might have. You might have some topography from Civil 3D or something like that as well, and also other options as well, which I won't get bogged down on today. So I'm just going to link in an AutoCAD drawing here. So I'm going to click Link CAD. So I have a site plan here, and I have this saved from a previous drawing that I might want to place on the site. This sketch has been created in AutoCAD, for example, maybe before you move to BIM or try to move to BIM, and you want to be able to reuse that information. So here I have it here saved within my folder, and you can import different types of file types, even SketchUp as well, and DXF if that's what you wish to use. So I've got DWG selected. You can select if you want to preserve your layering colors. I usually prefer to have it on black and white, just because it's easier to discern against the white background and kind of works a lot better as well. And you can also set it to millimeters or auto detect as well. I usually change it to millimeters just to be safe as well, and you can choose what coordinates and what points. So I'm just going to origin to origin, which is basically you can place it wherever you want once you bring it into the drawing. And you can see there it's now imported just as a 2D drawing. I'm just going to show you this in our 3D space just to show you that it's also imported. Just going to turn off my section box just for a moment. I'll go back into a section box. So you can see that 2D plan has located itself at whatever level I've brought it in. So when I click on this CAD plan, you can see what level it's been attached to. So I just chose the finished floor level at G, or ground level, because that's where I wanted to place it. But you could also place it at a different level for whatever reason. If it was an upper floor plan, you're able to do that as well. This just allows you to work with the CAD plan, either to print it alongside your CAD drawing, but in most cases, what I found initially when transitioning from BIM or from AutoCAD into BIM was that I used to use CAD drawings to start to trace over certain things as well. So I'm just going to place this back at our finished floor level G. That jumps straight back to our finished floor level. So I'm going to go into my floor plan, and you can see it jumps back to the tab I already have open. I just typed in something there called EOH, which basically grays out your drawing. It just helps you discern it from the main 3D model that you've already created. And you're also able to then start tracing over this information. So this is smart information that you're able to snap to. And not only that, if I was to make a change within this AutoCAD drawing, delete a wall, add something, and then click save, and then simply go back into my manage links, and I'm able to just refresh it. If I just reload it, then that information will reload immediately. Similar to how XREFs work, but just allowing you to still use that CAD process as you're making the transition. So I'm just going to jump back into my wall. Now what I do use, I found when I first started using AutoCAD, I always use the tools, clicking on the toolbar. But as we all know, you kind of get more familiar and you start to use your keyboard shortcuts. So you can see within Revit, when I hover over the wall tool, in brackets beside it, it says WA. That means that's your keyboard shortcut. So I'm going to just go back into my floor plan space here, click off so I've nothing selected. I'm just going to type WA, and you can see that immediately brings up my wall tool there. So I'm able to then make a selection from whatever wall type I have based in here that I want to start modeling from. So we have a series of ones. So I'm just going to click, for example, my external brick. This is a different wall. And then you have a series of tools that you can select. So I can start placing walls here if I want. But you can also do something that's called pick lines. And this allows me to snap into this AutoCAD drawing and basically to start creating lines. You can just flip that over as well. You can decide where the wall gets snapped to as well. So just WA again. And the location line of that wall can matter as well. You can change this afterwards if you prefer to as well. So I'm just going to choose finish face exterior. So as I place that wall, it knows to place it on the finish face of that exterior. So I can just place, I don't have to click every individual wall. You can use your tab key as well, just to show you, and then I can start placing partitions as well. So I've placed my external brick wall, that's fine. And you might say, okay, well, we're not going to have that type of construction between the two walls. And I'll show you now how we can change that. So you can see I've started to create a 3D model already, completely navigated in a 3D space, being able to see it in the real world space just almost in a matter of seconds. So I can also just turn off that as well. I'm just going to type in something here called EH, or element hide, which you can do from your keyboard if you wish. So I've started to create some walls, and as I said, look, we're not going to have that wall construction in between our two apartments or whatever this building design is. I can then go back to my wall type, and I can select, okay, well, I want a partition or a 2-hour partition or stud between that. I can just click on that, and that wall type has automatically changed to that as well. So I suppose the power of this is that you're also able to then further take this information and create something called schedules. And I'm going to show you an example of a schedule using our windows as well. So I'm just going to open up our floor plan. Just going to close our sheet that we've already created and close this floor plan as well. And I'm going to open up what's called a schedule. So these schedules have been created already, but I'll show you the process for creating. So under schedules and quantities, you're able to check exactly what's in your building. You can schedule almost anything in a project. And here we have what's called a window schedule. So basically, just as we know, we all have to do window schedules. It's a tabular form of everything within your project. So I'm just going to jump back into my 3D, type in WT again. So you can see here, as I select the window, obviously we've got our parametric information here on the left-hand side. This is WG01, and we can see in our list here as well. Select that. So we've got WG01. So you can see that that's the third line item here. So we can see, so we've only got one of them in a project at the moment. I'm just going to select this here. And you can see that has deleted from my schedule entirely. So if something deletes from here, it's not only 2D plans or 3D models that it deletes from, it also comes out of the schedules as well. So these schedules are quite powerful. So I'm just going to undo that window. You'll see that I just Control Z undo work. And you can see that that has popped back in there as well. So I'm just going to select that window again, and again, just look a bit further into the parametric information. So I'm just going to want to edit this type of window. So for example, There's a lot further information you could add in your U values as well in here, and your thermal resistance information. I've also seen this done for thermally efficient building, being able to leverage all of your material and U value information and being able to output that into schedules for further passive house calculation. I've seen a specific use case for. So you can also put in the manufacturer and you're able to schedule out this information as well. So I'm just going to make up a company name. We'll just call them UK Windows, for example. Just going to, I don't know if there's a manufacturer called there, called UK Windows, there could be. And I'm just going to put in a description. I'm just going to call this grey. We want a dark grey finish on this window. So then the manufacturer knows what color. So dark grey finish. You can put in a RAL color there as well if you prefer. Just going to click OK. Click apply. Just going to click OK. So that information is now attached to that. But say I want to do further analysis of that information within my schedule as well. So I'm going to jump into my schedule and I want to add another column. So I want to pull in that information that I've already placed. So I'm just going to right click in here, insert column. You can also do it from your left hand tab here. And I'm just going to send, so manufacturing information was the information that we've just created. So send that across. This is what we want to appear. And I'm also going to select the comments as well, or description. That was the one that we used for finish. Just going to click OK. And you can see that wherever that window appeared, that window type appeared, the manufacturing information has now gone into that. Again, dark gray finish. And again, if I change that window finish, I'm just going to click cancel. I'm going to select my window again. Click edit type. So we might, for example, want a green finish. Just going to apply on that. And you can see wherever that window type appears, the description has updated as well. So just being able to look at how you can schedule all of that information as well. So I'm just going to X out of this and go into a bit more detail, looking how you might quantify something within your schedules as well. And you're also able to filter that in a certain as well. So you're able to either itemize every instance or you can create grand totals as well. So you can see it's popped in a number here. So we have a grand total of windows as well. But say we want to go into a bit more detail with how they are broken down as well. So say they're broken down by window mark. Or you might just want to split it up by manufacturer as well. So I'm just going to turn off every instance. And you might want to sort it by window manufacturer as well. So I'm just going to jump back into my 3D view. And a handy little shortcut that I discovered within Revit when I first started using it, it was up in the top right here. You've got a little 3D house, and this just, when you click on that, it brings you back to your default 3D view, and this just allows you a quick way to always jump back. Alternatively, you go to what's called on the left-hand side, you have your project browser here. You can see there's a lot of drop-down options here as well. Sometimes you can have quite a lot of information in there because you have everything in there, your elevations, and this can be just a quicker way to jump to it as well. But alternatively, you can just drop down your 3D views and you're able to jump to your 3D view here as well. And we have a couple of other 3D views also set up there, which I'm going to show you the purpose of setting them up. So here we have still in our 3D space, it's an orthographic view rather than perspective. When I jump into my floor plan, so FFLG, if I want to create a 3D view, for example, so I'm just going to window tile that. You'll find window tile is quite a handy tool. I'm going to X this one. There's a little option here. So this is your view cube. You'll always also recognize that from similar to AutoCAD. There's a handy option here they added a couple of years ago called orientate to view. So I want to select my floor plan and I want to automatically jump to a 3D section cut view of that floor plan. So I'm just going to select that. So what appears to be a 3D view has now been turned into a sectioned cut floor plan of my drawing. I can start placing objects in that if I want. So I'm just going to import some furniture here from our project library. So you can load family, or you can go back to your architecture tab and you can select components. They both bring you to the same place. So I'm just going to select component. And when you select component, it brings up whatever you have preloaded into this. So you can see there's a couple of desks in there. There's some people objects as well you might want for 3D views. But I want to find a couch. So I'm just going to select or go into load family. So we have a furniture category in here. You can also add your own stuff in here. I'm going to go into seating. I'm just going to put those into extra large icons so we can have a look what we're actually looking at. So I'm just going to choose a couple of these couches, just going to place them around. And you can see that it's starting to highlight there. Some dimensions known as temporary dimensions are coming up, and that just shows you what the offset of that particular object is to that particular element. So I'm just going to place that there. And you can see that has now placed, and that's going to be in our 2D floor plan as well. It's going to jump into our floor plan. And you can see that that has placed into a 2D floor plan, and the temporary dimensions also show up there. But if I want to create some 3D views of that, so I can go into a floor plan, I can go back into a 2D plan. I'm going to use my view tab. So I'm just going to go to view, and I'm going to go to 3D view here, and I'm just going to go to camera. So I want to set up a view within there. It's going to place that camera, and you can see that has created a view now. I know it's just black and white lines for now. But when you go down here, you can change the visual styles of this. So you can go to hidden line, which is just your black and white lines, but you can also go to shaded, and you can see it's starting to come a bit more to life as well. So consistent colors is another appearance tool, but also realistic as well. So if you have materials applied to any of these, or if you have a brick type on the outside of your building, you're able to then view that as well. So that's setting up a 3D view. I'm just going to set up an external 3D view as well. So camera again, just pick your location, point it, and it automatically jumps to that location. So I can then expand this 3D view if it didn't catch in everything that you want. And you can, what I find when you start stretching things like that, the perspective can go off a bit funny. You just hit reset target and it tidies it up to a bit more of a more realistic view there as well. So I'm just going to select realistic. And you can see that it's brought in all of the materials, brick material that I have assigned here. Now it's a fairly basic material there, but I can go into that further. I'm going to open up that, click edit type, back into wall structure. Now this is where it can get a bit more detailed in if you're looking at 3D renderings and making it a bit more realistic there as well. You can select what type of image or 3D rendering image has been applied to that wall. I can also select plenty of different material types in here. Say I want to change that to masonry brick, a different type. From this, I don't know what it looks like, but I can just go into appearance and I can see here what image is being used here. And you can see a pre-rendered image of that there as well. So you've quite a selection of materials there, and you can load in, there are literally hundreds of materials in here. You will never run out of selections, but you can also edit these materials to create your own. Say you only want a certain brick pattern. I know we all like horizontal lines in architecture to suit our brick type. I'm going to set that to 75 horizontal rather than having the brick hatch. And this is how it will appear in all of your elevation drawings then, because I've changed it from this central material location. So I'm just going to click apply on that, click OK, and you can edit all of that information even further. So click OK, click apply, just going to click OK, and you can see how that red brick material has appeared in there. And again, our 3D view is set up. So what can you do further with that 3D view? So there's a number of rendering options within Revit here. You can render within the package itself. It does fairly good quality renderings, but obviously that does use the power of your computer, which is absolutely fine. It gives good results, and I'll just show you some of the examples here. When you render something, it automatically jumps into your rendering tab, and you can see here fairly good quality rendering. Now, even in the last version of Revit, which this wasn't rendered in, they've increased the quality of it. There's quite a number of blog posts regarding that as well, so it's worth looking into that. And then you're able to create different, obviously different quality renders as well. So you can see this one actually took 2 hours to render in the product. But say you wanted to render something in a very quick hurry, you can use something called Render in the Cloud, which is very powerful. And again, they've upgraded the technology behind this, and the quality is far superior. So this allows you to send any of those 3D views that I've already created, send it to the cloud for rendering. And I won't go into the full process, but I'll show you how to get started. Now, this does require some cloud credits, but I understand when you purchase Revit, you get 100 free credits, which you're able to do. And I can then select whatever 3D views that I want rendered in the cloud. So 3D 3 and 4, I just created it. I'm going to deselect that one. I could send all of these 3D views if I wanted. Output type, you can choose how it appears. You can do it in luminance as well of an internal room, and select the quality. So standard quality is completely free. It will always be. It's a fairly low quality, but it still gives you an indication of how it might render. And you can also change the megapixel of that as well. So once you start increasing that megapixel, it might cost you 1 credit as well. And then you just click render. That will then send that to the cloud, and you can select that it will email when complete as well. So you're able to access any of these rendered images within the cloud as well. And they're quite good quality, I have to say. So it's definitely worth looking into that as well. So just jumping back into a 3D view. So being able to send this into something like cloud rendering will give you a better understanding of how that's going to look, and being able to communicate that to clients and show such quick turnaround renders to clients, you know, it really goes a long way to show them, you know, what you're dedicating to their design process. So as I touched on earlier, the kind of Revit Live integration or the virtual reality integration, this is where you find this here. So once you click go live, you can then send this again up to the cloud. It sometimes will just give you a couple of warnings. You just have to click fix these, and there's no major issues. And these will just warn you if materials are attached to your project or not. And you can then select whatever projects or whatever views that you want to send that as well, and where you want to send it. And once you click go, that will then take about 5 or 10 minutes. It will download it from the cloud. And as I showed in the video, you're able to then navigate through that 3D model that you've already created. It will have everything that you've just added to it. So our couch and any sort of walls within that as well. I'm just going to touch on how you might then, once you've placed drawings on sheets, you've created your 3D views and your design, you want to start printing your sheets, you want to start moving those along as well. So I'm just going to jump into my ground floor plan. It's already been placed on a sheet. So if I want to start dimensioning these, I can then just double click within here. I'm going to just double click within my view. It's similar to selecting in your viewport, and that's going to then jump into that view. I'm just going to delete these dimensions. You can see as I selected them, it selected every dimension along that wall. I then want to just go to my annotate tab. I want to select aligned, and you can see here in the options bar, it gives you, okay, what do you want to dimension here? So I'm just going to select wall faces. I want to do entire walls or individual references. I'm going to select entire walls. I'm just going to go into options, and it gives you options here. So it's good to have openings selected and widths. And I'm just going to click OK. And once I click on that wall, you can see it's done every opening within that wall as well. I can then do the same along this wall. And you can see it's dimensioned every single opening within there as well. And you can, as I said, you can still do just individual references if you want as well, between locations or between walls. So just individual references. So you can still start placing individual dimensions as well. And I touched on using the things like the tags as well. Something I also find very powerful, I have to say, and I've used this in practice as well, are room tags. So room tags are almost invisible objects, and I'm just going to hit delete on this. So now I'm just going to click X on that. I'm going to go back to my annotate tab, and I can use something called a room tag. So up here is called room tag. So I'm just going to type in RM to tag my room, and I'm just going to place this room here, and you can see it's automatically determined that our room is based within this 4 walls, so it knows exactly what's in there. So that's our room tag being placed. You can see the crossing section, and this gives you all of your floor area information as well, and you can then schedule out any of this floor area information. I can then place a room tag on that. Just going to not save that for a moment. I can place a room tag on that, and that room tag knows that it's been placed on that room. So if I select that room, I want to rename that to something else. So back into name, I'm just going to click Office 10. Just going to click apply. Sorry. Hit enter. Hit apply, and you can see that name has changed there. Now, when I go back into my schedules as well for rooms, so schedules, and again, all of my floor areas have been graded here, and there's that floor that I create, or that room tag that I created already. Just going to jump to a section here as well, just to show you, just to explain how roofs and walls are created as well. So I'm going to go to a pre-created section, go to view, and walls and floors are quite similar in how you create them as well. You're able to select on them. You can see here we've got a concrete floor with a screed over it. You're able to edit the type and the construction of that as well, and it's as simple as placing walls also. The same goes for roof. You can change the build-up of that. Here we've got a flat roof, for example, but you're also able to do pitched roofs, hip roofs, any type of roof as well. And you can see here we've got nice parapet details as well. Now, you don't have to model absolutely everything in Revit in a 3D environment. You can also use things called call-out tags, which allow you to do localized 2D details as well. So I'm just going to create a call-out, a rectangle. Say we want to do a parapet detail here, showing the capping, whether it's pressed metal or an insulated capping as well. That's then created a call-out. So that's created a separate view of that I'm able to place on a sheet as well. So just under our sections, that's been pulled from this, and you can see it's been created as a call-out. Now I can then place this onto a sheet. I can also start adding further levels of detail to this as well. So you can start adding 2D detail lines, or you can just start adding in your brick detail as well. So repeating block work. So within that, you're able to change the size of that. And these are just 2D information that you mightn't want to go to the effort of. And you can change the width of that as well. So you've got full control of that, and you can create different types of hatch patterns for that as well. So simple things like trying to place your insulation as well. You're able to place that straight down your cavity. This only exists in 2D, but you're able to schedule out this information as well. I can change the width of that to 140, and you can see that that's been placed in there as well. So then I can take that 2D detail, I can jump to my sheets. It's going to go back to my floor plan sheet. So back to my A113 that I've already created. I have that there. I can also change my viewport. Sorry, I'm just going to hide my viewport so I'm not seeing that 2D plan. So you can see how you can just viewports quite easily as well, tidy up your drawings, only see what you want to see. So I'm going to go back to my call out under sections. So there's my call out I just created. I can then drag that onto a sheet. All that information is there, and the scale goes into it as well. So that's just, I suppose, a bit of a whistle-stop tour of using Revit. Now I'm going to show how you might leverage this information further, looking at something like what we call BIM 360, which is an Autodesk solution to cloud storage. You might have come across the term CDE, or Common Data Environment, which is another term for cloud storage. And BIM 360 is a type of cloud storage as well. So I'm just going to X out some of these tabs. It doesn't close the project whatsoever. So if I want to send this project to the cloud, I've got some options, providing you have access to BIM 360, but it's worth looking into as well. I can click on something called my Collaborate tab. Click Collaborate. I have to just save my model before I do that. Click Save. And it's given me two options here. Now this usually takes about 5 or 10 minutes initially to send up your model, and I can select, if I have access to something called BIM 360 Document Management, I can click OK. That will then upload that into the cloud. And you might say, okay, well, what's the importance of that? You're then able to access that information within the cloud. So I'm just going to access where I've sent that project to. So I was able to, from within Revit, I was able to send that model up into the cloud. I can then choose where that resides in the cloud and what gets sent to the cloud as well. then within a web browser from any location. You don't need to have Revit installed on your machine to be able to access this in your browser. So I've saved that project to the cloud as well. You can see here, this is just as simple using Google Chrome or something like that. You log into your BIM 360 account, and I can then access that 3D model within BIM 360 directly uploaded from Revit. So there's no separate uploading method, which you can do it manually if you wish, but this is now linked back to Revit as well. So if I make changes then within my Revit model, if I delete a window, if I then click synchronize within that model, I'm able to synchronize that with the central model, which is the one that resides in the cloud, which takes a few minutes to update. I will then see those changes appear in this as well. So just to show you that it doesn't just upload the 3D view or the 3D model, it also uploads any of the 2D floor plans that you have as well. And this is all intelligent information. You're able to then, you can measure this as well. So within your browser, I'm just going to select my wall tool. And this is currently set to Imperial. You can't change that. That's no major deal. So you can just take measurements as well. You're able to review drawings. So you might be working across between different consultants in different offices, or you might also be working, you know, in different locations around the country or around the globe as well. And you're able to review this drawing in a different manner as well. And also, any of your parametric information that was created within Revit now appears in here. So I'm just going to, so I selected that wall, for example. So I'm then able to see any of the information attached to that. The same as we've seen manufacturer, I could select a window. If I had the details attached to that particular window, I'm able to then see that within the parametric information on the right-hand side here as well. I can also add some comments. I'm going to go back into my 3D view now, because that's the view I like working most in. So I'm just going to jump into my 3D view here as well. And multiple people can log into this project as well, as long as they have access to BIM 360. I can then freehand draw. I can place different shapes around items. So I might just want to place a square around that. And I might want to comment on that as well. So I'm just going to click on a markup tool here on the left-hand side. I want to create a markup. And you can see by me placing that red box, it's automatically created a markup. Now I want to create another markup. Draw just a shape around that, and I can add maybe a photograph or a comment to that as well if I want. So I might want to create another one. I might want to put in a piece of text or an arrow. So I might want to just click done on that. And when somebody else logs in here, they'll see these comments have been made, and they're able to review them for whatever reason. They're able to edit them if they have those particular access rights. And it's just a way of managing any sort of design markups as well, directly taken from your model within Revit. And then somebody can review this, go back into Revit, make the changes they need to make, delete objects, or, you know, add the finish information, and then synchronize their model to the cloud as well. And they can also download it from the source file, and then you can share this via email link as well. So that's kind of, as I said, whistle-stop tour of Revit, but also showing you how you might further leverage your Revit model using something like BIM 360 as well. Okay, thank you very much. I'll hand it back to you now, Paul.
Right, is it back to me, John?
Yeah, it is, yes.
Back in control, great. Thank you very much for an absolutely fantastic presentation of both, in this case, Revit and BIM 360. I certainly found it to be, you know, very in-depth, and I hope our colleagues in the audience did as well. From what I can see, Jonathan, correct me if I'm right, you might have a better view on this. I'm not seeing any online questions yet. Can you just verify that?
I haven't, no, none come through on this side either.
Okay, so it's probably worth just taking the opportunity to open the floor up to the attendees to pop in any questions or any burning questions they have to answer through the questions panel. Correct?
Please do. Yes, yeah. Anybody send through questions, please do. And just while we're waiting on any questions to come through, I'll just kind of, suppose, add in a bit more additional things that I might see as if you're making the transition from, you know, a traditional process or a CAD process to a BIM process. You can still export all of your information directly to a CAD format as well. So there's lots of different options here. There's IFC, which is an interoperable or neutral format, not only a Revit format. You're able to share that as well. But you can also export any of your drawings as a DWG, and these are all snappable drawings, openable within, you know, any AutoCAD software, and you're able to either reuse those floor plans if you want, or if you have to send floor plans to a consultant, you don't just have to send them the Revit model, you can send them independent CAD drawings as well, if that's what you need.
So, Jonathan, we just got a question pop up from Leyland Button.
Yep.
And the question is, how did you switch between views in BIM 360? Do you want to just recap that?
Absolutely. So within BIM 360, I'm just going to move that question off the line. So how did I jump through views? So from within Revit, you have an option called Publish Settings. I'm just going to cancel this for a second. You have an option called Publish Settings, and this gives me the option to upload anything that I have within my 3D model. So for example, all my 3D views, I'm able to upload all of these, and then when I upload these, click Save and Close, I'm then able to access them as independent views within here as well. So I go into my plans folder within BIM 360, and I can then just select those separate drawings here. So if we look at these three, what appear to be separate file types, they're actually not. They're all from the same version of the Revit model. They've just automatically pulled out the different sheets as well. And the same applies to any sort of 3D views that you can jump between them there as well. So I hope that answers your question.
I just wondered, Leyland, whether you could confirm that that's answered your question okay? That'd be quite useful if you could. Right, at the moment, Jonathan, right, next question is from Nick Lewis. I'll read it out. Can you drop viewports in sheets as you can in AutoCAD without using callouts?
You can indeed, yes. And I will show you now. So I'm just going to jump in, and that's a handy thing to know. I have to say, when I first started using Revit, I was so used to using AutoCAD for a good 10 years anyway, that, you know, I always try to jump to the AutoCAD explanation of things. Well, concepts are still the same within AutoCAD. There are certain little things that are slightly different. So can you crop viewports and sheets? So here we have our sheet here, and here we have a drawing I've placed on it here as well. So I can either double click within this, what's known as a viewport, and you can see a branch of that floor plan as it steps in here. That's your floor plan as well, that you're also able, if I crop that in here, it's going to reflect as well. So down the bottom bar, you'll see here, you've got show crop region, you've got options to crop view. So the show crop region, that is your crop box effectively, and I want to show the crop view as well. So if I just zoom out, that's our crop region has appeared here. So I just pull that over like this. So this is not changing the actual 3D model, it's only changing the viewport effectively. I can then, if I want to just localize that to a certain part of it as well. And you can also turn on something called annotation crop, which allows you to still have your annotation within your cropping as well. And as I move that, you can have notation in there as well, but it will clear out the edges of the drawing as well. So I'm just going to jump back into my floor plan. And that has allowed me to crop my floor plan to that section. If I jump back in here, I can either choose to do not crop view, or I can choose to hide the crop region as well. So it hides the crop region, but it still shows the view as well. I can also choose to turn off some of these items if I wish. So say I didn't want the grid lines to show up, I could right click, I can override the graphics in the view, and I can just go by category as well. And that's just going to ask me what I want to change it to, and I can just hide those, and it only changes it within this particular view as well. It hasn't affected the overall appearance of where those other grid lines might show up as well.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. We'll just give it a few seconds for any final questions. Now, there's no more that have come up, so we'll give it a minute and see if anyone else has any burning questions to ask.
Perfect.
In the meantime, while we're waiting for that, just to really sort of cap off, obviously CAD Point's role is to work with you after today in getting you to the building information modelling platform. And we do that really by coming to see you, find out where you are, what you want to achieve, what your BIM strategy is, and then developing with you that strategy from looking at the people, process and technology you've got and you need, and then implementing a plan to deliver those areas. That can be from the technology side, so in terms of hardware and software. From the people side of things, it could be training and development of your staff. And from the process side, looking at how you set up your BIM templates, etc., at the start of a project, and then working with you on those projects in workshops as you go forward. Got one more question pop up from Leyland, Jonathan, which asks a question: does BIM 360 come with Revit, or do you have to buy it separately?
As far as I know, it's a separate subscription. But there are different levels of it again in what you can subscribe to.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, and if you're interested in that, Leyland, we can have a separate webinar like today, or we can come and see you and talk about it, depending on what you're looking to achieve. Right. Okay, I think we'll close down the Q&A session then, Jonathan. As I said, really just recap where we are on CAD Point's perspective, which is to help people get to BIM through developing a strategy around process and technology, so on and so forth. And I'd like to thank you very much for your input today. It's been really good and much appreciated. And thank you to all of the audience today for giving us an hour and 15 minutes of your life. We'll be in contact with you, no doubt, probably via email or a few calls to check in and see what you thought of today's event. So with that in mind, I think we'll call it, bring it to an end now, Jonathan, and thank you all very much. And
brilliant. Thank you, Paul, and thank you everybody for attending today. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Goodbye.